Government moves to cap RON 95 and diesel prices. MOH in talks with Pfizer for another 30% of vaccine supply. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Updates at Noon with me, Azlani Adani. The government has decided to cap the retail prices of RON 95 petrol and diesel at RM2.05 and RM2.15 per litre respectively. The matter was announced by the Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz in a statement to protect consumers from the effects of any drastic spike in oil price following the rise in global oil prices. Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul said the government will cover the difference between the actual market price and the retail price that is set weekly through subsidy allocation. The Finance Minister added that the decision was made based on the upward trend in the actual market price for petroleum products following the higher demand for crude oil, which is influenced by the reopening of various economic sectors worldwide. Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul said the global oil price trend was also influenced by the COVID-19 vaccination plan, which is beginning to gradually take off around the world, with Malaysia set to kick off its national immunization program later this month. He said the government remained committed to reducing the people's cost of living and would monitor the effects of changes in global crude oil prices. No new clusters linked to interstate travel have been recorded since 1st February until 9th February as a result of the implementation of the Movement Control Order 2.0, which started on 16th January. Health Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Adham Baba said from 16th December to 30th January, the Ministry of Health had detected 31 interstate clusters involving a total of 4,376 positive COVID-19 cases. He said these cases occurred in 8 states, namely Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan, Kedah, Perak, Negeri Sembilan, Sarawak and the Federal Territory of Labuan. Datuk Seri Dr. Adham said the cases of infection were from 6 initial states, namely the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, Penang, Johor, Malacca and Sabah.
Sejak 1 bulan 2 tahun 2021 hingga kini, tidak ada kluster-kluster rentas negeri yang direkodkan. Rekod menunjukkan bahawa trend kes harian menunjukkan dia telah mula menurun dan ia adalah 14 days moving forward ataupun kita rakam kes-kes yang berlaku 14 hari yang lepas untuk direkodkan pada hari-hari yang berikutnya.
In a briefing, he said the development reflects the effectiveness of the stricter enforcement that has been implemented. Datuk Seri Dr. Adham also said the Bera and Lipis districts in Pahang had changed to green zones for the past few days. With no interstate clusters and no new cases, he said MOH expects about 7 or 8 more districts will turn to green soon. With 10 days left before the end of MCO 2.0, Datuk Seri Dr. Adham said the MOH urged that the interstate ban be maintained. Meanwhile, the Health Minister also confirmed that MOH is in talks with pharmaceutical company Pfizer to obtain another 30% supply of COVID-19 vaccine, Comirnaty, concentrate for dispersion for injection produced by Pfizer BioNTech. According to Datuk Seri Dr. Adham, the additional amount would cover 50% of Malaysia's population.
Kita sedang giat untuk memastikan bahawa kita akan dapat lagi 20% vaksin Pfizer dan kita akan tambah lagi sebanyak 7 juta dos lagi, iaitu menjadikan dia almost 50% 50% coverage. Dan ini masih perlu lagi kita berunding dengan Kementerian Kewangan, dan Kementerian Kewangan telah mengumumkan bahawa allocation sebanyak RM3 bilion untuk pembelian vaksin boleh digunakan. Setakat ini kita hanya belanjakan untuk pembelian daripada COVAX Facility, Pfizer dan juga AstraZeneca.
The national COVID-19 immunization plan program will be implemented earlier after the country was suspected to receive the Pfizer vaccine earlier. Datuk Seri Dr. Adam was previously reported to have said that Malaysia would receive the Pfizer vaccine a week earlier before the first phase of the national COVID-19 immunization plan begins on 26 February. Pharmaniaga Berhad is confident of meeting the targeted vaccine demand of 120,000 shots per day. According to its Deputy Managing Director Muhammad Iqbal Abdul Rahman, the pharmaceutical company is able to produce 2 million doses of the kerana vaccine made by Chinese pharmaceutical company Sinovac Life Sciences. Muhammad Iqbal said the company projected 120,000 injections can be carried out daily at all 600 vaccination centres. Pharmaniaga has signed an agreement with Sinovac to supply 14 million doses of its COVID-19 vaccine, with the fill and finish process carried out at its high-tech factory in Puchong, Selangor. The company has also signed an agreement to supply 12 million doses of the kerana vaccine to the Ministry of Health. Meanwhile, the company's Logistic and Distribution Director Abdul Malik Muhammad said with 26 years of experience, the company was ready and confident of managing the supply of the Sinovac vaccine as soon as it arrived in the country. The National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, will implement the COVID-19 Eradicating Agent Program ABC-19 in stages to provide advice and to ensure the public continue to comply with the COVID-19 Standard Operating Procedures SOP. According to its Director General, Dr. Aminuddin Hashim, the ABC-19 initiative will involve 7 community-based entities such as the People's Volunteer Corps, RELA, the Civil Defence Force, APM, Residences Committees and NGOs.
Kita pun dah berbincang dengan pihak polis dan mereka sentiasa berada di dalam perbincangan kita. Kalaulah ada konfrontasi contohnya ataupun berlaku sesuatu pergaduhan ataupun jenayah yang kita jumpa, kita cuma tahan di tempat situ sehingga pasukan polis datang untuk menghulurkan bantuan. Sebab mereka mempunyai kuasa dan cara yang terbaik bagaimana nak mengendalikan kes-kes jenayah, kes-kes besar.
Meanwhile, APM Director General Dr. Roslan Wahab said 15,200 volunteers are required to ensure the success of ABC-19 in 159 districts and nationwide. He also called on APM to fully join the initiative.
Okay, di kesempatan ini saya nak menyuruh kepada semua warga pertahanan awam yang mungkin dah 5-6 tahun tak bertugas kerana beban kerja dan sebagainya, tetapi kali ini kita minta mereka untuk mengaktifkan balik dia punya permohonan tu, mengemaskinikan maklumat diri dan mana ada nombor telefon sebagainya dan juga bila dia boleh bertugas sebagainya. Kita dah keluarkan QR code dan kita akan sebarkan lagi melalui WhatsApp, melalui Google Link, dan juga mereka juga boleh masuk ke WhatsApp kita punya Facebook, kita punya website sebagainya untuk mendapatkan QR code tu untuk mengisi data-data lah.
In the 1MDB trial proceedings yesterday, the Kuala Lumpur High Court was told that Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak had asked the Cabinet not to make the donation from a Saudi prince, Sultan Abdul Aziz Al Saud, to Yayasan Satu Malaysia Development Berhad 1MDB public as per the donor's request. Former Deputy Chief Secretary to the Cabinet, Tan Sri Mazidah Abdul Majid, 72, said the former Prime Minister informed the matter during a Cabinet meeting chaired by himself, which was held in Putrajaya on 8 September 2010. Tan Sri Mazidah said the former Premier told the Cabinet that the Saudi Prince had channeled the donation from his charity foundation to the Yayasan 1MDB, and the Prince had promised to channel subsequent donations later. In the meeting, Datuk Sri Najib said with the donation, more projects and corporate social responsibility CSR programs can be implemented. At the same meeting, Datuk Sri Najib also added that the government should be more creative in finding other sources of funds, as it would give more flexibility to the government to help help the people. In September 2019, former 1MDB Chief Executive Officer Datuk Sharul Azral Ibrahim Halmi testified that fugitive businessman Loh Teck Jo or Jo Loh handed to him 4 cheques totaling $100 million, which were the alleged donations from the Saudi royal family to the Yayasan 1MDB Trust Fund. The cheques were then passed to the 1MDB Finance Department for safekeeping before tendering his resignation in 2013. The trial resumes today. Coming up next, palm oil export earnings in 2020 highest in 4 years. The Kedah government is offering interest-free soft loans to tourism sector operators in the state to ease their financial burden as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Its Menteri Besar Muhammad Sanusi Mahathir said that the loan capped at RM5,000 is also offered to selected food delivery riders. Muhammad Sanusi said the loans will be managed by the State Entrepreneur Development Unit (UPUK) and successful applicants will have the money credited into their bank accounts.
Pinjaman RM5,000 kepada 400 pemohon. Kita jangka 400 pemohon, maksimum RM5,000. Kalau dia minta lebih kurang pada tu pun baguslah. Tapi maksimum dia boleh minta pinjam RM5,000 lah. Pinjaman mudah. Tanpa faedah tapi kena bayar balik. Akan diuruskan di bawah tabung amanah upuk.
Meanwhile, Muhammad Sanusi said approval for the RM500 business capital aid through the Kedah Women's Special Fund will also be expedited. In another development, Muhammad Sanusi said allegations that more than 4,046 hectares of hilly terrain around Gunung Inas had been planted with durian trees, as alleged in a viral video clip recently, were untrue. The Menteri Besar said only about 5,000 hectares of land were approved in 2007 in the area as forest plantations and to be planted with trees such as Albasia, and only 20% of the land is allowed for durian cultivation.
Saya telah mengarahkan Jabatan Perhutanan untuk memastikan 20% yang nak dibuat ladang hutan, 20% daripada ladang hutan telah diluluskan itu ditanam durian, jangan lebih pada itu. Kalau kelulusan kita 15,000 hektar, 20% lebih kurang 3,096 hektar saja boleh ditanam durian. Yang kita bimbang ialah semua ladang hutan tu ditanam durian. Dia melanggar syarat.
Recently, a video clip showed a man claiming that at least 12,140 hectares of hilly land in Gunung Inas was being developed as a durian plantation, supposedly the largest in the world. The Malaysian palm oil industry has generated about 72.8 billion ringgit through the export of palm oil and its products to the international market in 2020. The Minister of Plantation Industries and Commodities, Datuk Dr. Muhammad Khairuddin Aman Razali, said this amount was much higher compared with 63.73 billion ringgit recorded in 2019 and the highest since 2017. Datuk Dr. Muhammad Khairuddin said the status of the palm oil industry as one of the 4 biggest contributors to the Malaysian economy for the last 15 to 18 years proves that the palm oil industry is important to developing countries like Malaysia.
Industri sawit juga memainkan peranan yang sangat penting dalam menangani situasi pandemik yang dihadapi dengan pada ketika ini. Sabun dan pencuci yang merupakan antara medium terpenting sebagai pembasmi virus COVID-19 adalah diperbuat dari minyak sawit. Bahan asas alkohol pembersih tangan yang digunakan secara meluas untuk menghapuskan virus tersebut juga boleh dihasilkan dengan minyak sawit.
The minister also said that it has indirectly opened up business opportunities for pharmaceutical entrepreneurs by utilizing palm-based oil products, adding that as of today, about 450,000 oil palm smallholders and their families depend on the commodity for their livelihood. The Women, Family and Community Development Ministry, KPWKM, has received 2.3 million ringgit in full scholarship sponsorships for its targeted group of students and a contribution of 100,000 ringgit for the Kembara Prihatin Negara KPN program from Lim Kok Wing University. The checks for the sponsorship and contribution were handed over to its Minister, Datuk Sri Rina Muhammad Harun, to the university's Senior Vice President, Raja Datuk Aznil Raja Hisham. Datuk Sri Rina, in a statement, said the full scholarships would be given to 30 students who would be studying at University Lim Kok Wing. She said education plays an important role in moulding a new generation of intellectuals who could fulfill the country's aspirations, adding that the KPN program implemented since 1st November 2020 aimed to help people impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic through the contribution of basic necessities. Coming up in sports, Azizul Hasni all fired up for Olympics after UCI #1 ranking. To ensure the safety and health of all, the Playbook for the athletes and officials is set to be official and centralized source of information for the Tokyo Olympics in July. According to the Olympic Council of Malaysia, OCM, the Playbook outlines the basic principles that the contingent is required to know 14 days before their travel to Japan, when entering Japan, during their time at the Games and when leaving the Games. The Malaysian contingent's chef de mission for the Tokyo Olympic Games, Datuk Lee Chong Wei, said the Playbook not only provides direction that will assist them in their planning and preparations, but also clarity on how the organisers plan to make the Games safe and secure.
Not easy. I think all the athletes must prepare mentally and not is physically, and mentally is more important, because I heard a badminton player and 3 tournaments in Thailand. I think the SOP is very, very tight. And now a lot of things IOC not yet confirmed, because just now we talk together in the canteen one, and because a lot of people go in, right?
Meanwhile, the OCM will continue to work closely with all the parties involved to create the most ideal environment and platform for athletes to perform at their very best in the upcoming Games. The Youth and Sports Ministry KBS plans to launch the National Sports Vision 2030 VSN 2030 in the first quarters of this year. According to Minister Datuk Sri Rizal American, VSN 2030 aims to turn Malaysia into a sporting nation and united through the development and culture of sports. He said it comprises 6 main thrusts, namely sporting culture, infrastructure, high-performance sports, science and technology, professionalism and sports industry. In addition, Datuk Sri Rizal American said the KBS had also presented several new mechanisms, including the creation of the Rakan Muda Sports Bubble Volunteers SBV to the National Security Council MKN and the Ministry of Health. According to him, the SBV will be responsible for ensuring compliance with SOP as well as advocacy awareness programs through the concept of community empowerment.
Hakikatnya kita memerlukan model pelaksanaan yang efektif kepada idea gelembung sukan yang pernah kita bangkitkan sebelum ini. Saya cukup yakin jika mekanisme SBV ini berjaya kita laksanakan dengan berkesan. Mekanisme dan model sama berkemungkinan digunakan oleh industri dan sektor lain. Apa yang penting, KBS sudah mendahului dan menjadi peneraju kepada mekanisme baru ini.
National cycling icon Muhammad Azizul Hasni Awang is all fired up for the Tokyo Olympics in July after being ranked #1 in the individual sprint in the latest UCI rankings. Based on the latest ranking issued by UCI, the world governing body for sports cycling, on Tuesday, Azizul Hasni, fondly called the Pocket Rocket Man, collected 1,600 points to clinch the top spot in the individual sprint. Japanese cyclist Tomohiro Fukaya is second with 1,442.5 points, followed by Sam Webster of New Zealand in third place with 1,390 points. Azizul Hasni's teammates, namely Muhammad Shafir Dasharum, is in 18th spot with 922.5 points. Muhammad Fadil Muhammad Zonis 103rd with 237 points, while Amar Daniel Masri is in 248th place with 75 points. In Kirin, Azizul Hasni is in second place after collecting 1,740 points, coming behind Kevin Quintero of Colombia, who collected 1,790 points. The 2016 Rio Olympics bronze medalist also said the good news is also a source of inspiration to all young athletes in the country to chase their dreams. Meanwhile, in a Twitter post, Youth and Sports Minister Dato Sri Rizal American Nine American extended congratulations to Azizul Hasni over the feat. That concludes today's edition of Updates at Noon. In our top story, government moves to cap RON95 and diesel prices. Tune into News at 10 coming up at 10 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM on My Free Views channel 123. You can also stream the news by surfing RTM's MyClick. Thank you, I'm Azlan Yadani. Stay tuned to TV2 and goodbye for now.